Seriously, what's the story? Find out today in this episode of Licensure Lifeline. Not too far off in the distant future, you may come across some questions about narrative therapy. This is actually one of my favorite modalities. It's a really fun way to work with people. It's all about getting their story and not only finding out what their story is, but helping them rewrite the next chapters of their story. Like so many things in our wonderful culture, narrative therapy can be rooted back to the 1980s. This approach was co developed by Michael White, who is an Australian, and David Epstein, who is from New Zealand. They shaped this therapeutic approach that really emphasizes the stories of our lives and shows how our stories shape our perceptions, decisions, and interactions through those lives. The main tenets of narrative therapy include storytelling, of course, the belief that one's identities are shaped by the narratives that we construct about our lives. Therapy really involves identifying the stories and influence that influences a person's identity. If you think about how much of you is the story that you tell people, the story that you've come to adopt about who you are and where you come from, it's interesting to be able to go back and actually take a look at that story. Sometimes you can find out that those things have there's things in your past, in your life, in your story that have been exaggerated, and maybe even some things that have been underplayed that could really change your life and how you see it. Another significant tenet within this modality is problem externalization. I really like this aspect of narrative therapy, but it's where the individual separates their issue from their identity a bit. So you might see someone in narrative therapy who is depressed or anxious talk about how their depression impacts them, or even give their depression a name. Same with anxiety, gives their anxiety a name like Fred, and talks about how that anxiety, how Fred impacts their lives or impacts them. Now, as humans, we have a tendency to catastrophize a lot of our lives and look at the worst case scenarios in a bigger light than the things that are really great about us. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when I work with somebody and their story, the things that they tell me when I ask them, like, tell me a little bit about yourself. They go into all the things that are wrong with them. Honestly, I think we're very much so socialized to do this. And one of the nice things with narrative therapy is you get to reauthor your story. So you help the client to create these new empowering stories about themselves that move away from these problem saturated narratives. Lastly, the unique outcomes. This is where you identify moments or decisions that contradict the negative narratives that dominated in the client story. So going back and looking at some of those problems, some of those negative narratives, and really rewriting those and picking those apart a bit. But narrative therapy is really effective for just a whole slew of different things. I've used it for in everything from just depression and anxiety to trauma, to family and marital conflict. You can imagine like a couple rewriting their story as a couple. It can be very therapeutic and actually very just refreshing and eye opening for both individuals involved. And then just personal development. It's so nice to see somebody like take a magnifying glass to the story that they've been telling themselves for years and years and years, sometimes decades, and just go back and realize that some of those things that they've been telling themselves just aren't nearly as true as they thought they were. And actually, there's other things there that can bring out the better in them. So, this isn't necessarily what I would consider a memory strategy, but something that you can consider when you are studying, trying to get this information down. Using the narrative technique, frame your study sessions as a story where you're the hero, conquering challenges, the exam, and using your tools, study techniques, to overcome those challenges. Imagine you being the hero of that story and you coming out victorious. Remember, the better the story that you tell yourself, chances are, maybe so, the better you might actually do on the test. Okay, let's go over some study questions. Question number one: what is a fundamental principle of narrative therapy? Is it A, clients are inherently responsible for their problems? B, problems are externalized from the client? C, behavioral modification is a primary focus? Or D, past traumas are reenacted? The correct answer to this is B, problems are externalized from the client. Question two: who are the primary figures associated with the development of narrative therapy? Is it A, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung? B, Michael White and David Epstein? C, Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis? Or D, B.F. Skinner and John Watson? The answer to this is going to be B, Michael White and David Epstein. Remember, Australian and New Zealand. Question three: which technique is not commonly used in narrative therapy? A, identifying unique outcomes. B, reauthoring life stories. C, systematic desensitization. Or D, problem externalization. Letter C is going to be the correct answer. Last question. Narrative therapy emphasizes the importance of A, uncovering unconscious motives. B, reconstructing the client's personal narrative. C, strengthening behavioral responses. Or D, altering neurological processes. The correct answer to this is going to be B, reconstructing the client's personal narrative. All right, that's going to do it for the episode. Thank you so much for listening again. I hope that you got a lot out of that episode. Quick reminder or quick note, I am starting some Quizlet flashcards. You can create a free Quizlet account. It's a great resource. But just look up Licensure Lifeline and you should have access to all of my flashcards for free. I think I have like 2 or 3 sets there right now, but I'm making more. So until next time, keep on studying.